Oh, welcome to question 107 of the Secunda Secundae. The topic for this lecture is ingratitude, and I am Dr. Thibault. Now, to place ingratitude, it is under the section of the cardinal virtue of justice. Under justice, we have the parts of justice, which this section is observance. Um, and under observance is virtue of gratitude, and this is the responding vice of ingratitude. So ingratitude is a sin really against the virtue of observance, not properly being giving respect to one to whom it is due. Now, this is only 4 articles long, and they're fairly quick articles too, which is a nice thing. The sin of ingratitude, it's a debt. The debt of gratitude is a moral debt required by virtue. We just covered this in question 106 previously. So, gratitude deals with a moral debt, not a legal debt, if you recall. Um, and it's something which should be paid back with gratitude. It's not always paying back in terms of money, but in terms of gratitude. Now, a sin is contrary to a virtue, therefore, ingratitude is a sin. So, gratitude is a virtue, and this is the opposite of that virtue, then that makes it a sin. There are various insights in this section, which I think it's worth pointing out. So no person is excused from ingratitude or excused from gratitude through the inability to repay it. This was talked about in question 106 in more detail, so I won't go into all the detail, but a person can always repay gift with gratitude, because gratitude can be free. If you give reverence and honor to the person, if you are grateful for the person, if you try to pay them back to the ability in which you are capable, you are showing gratitude. So the ability to repay something isn't necessarily required to be grateful. So there's no excuse for ingratitude. Forgetfulness is also not an excuse. It's actually a sign that you are ungrateful. Uh, if you say, oh, I didn't even remember to send the person the thing. I didn't even remember to respond, to the person. Well, that's a sign that you are ungrateful, right? That's not an excuse. It's a sign of the thing you are being accused of. So in that way, it's kind of an interesting one. Um, Also, the debt of gratitude flows from the debt of love, and from the latter, no man should wish to be free. So, if you do not uh, show gratitude, then you do not love your benefactor. If somebody has given you something, uh, given you some type of gift, uh, you should you should love them, and you should want to return that in some way. If it's not a matter of trying to uh, just get out from the debt of it. This again was talked about in question 106. If somebody does something nice for you, and the first thing you want to do is just repay them so that you are no longer indebted to them, that does not mean that you have gratitude. Actually, it just means you're trying to get out of the debt. You have a sense of indebtedness to the person, but not a sense of gratitude towards them. So, uh, there's a matter of justice in repaying someone, but in terms of the virtue of gratitude, it would be not the primary purpose of paying the person back to get out of that relationship. Right? Good friends, one of them might pay for going out to dinner this week, and the next time, you surprise the person with a cup of coffee, then during the week, and then you go out on the weekend and you surprise them with something else. You're always um, looking for gratitude to continue the relationship. That would be the idea, to continue it rather than to set it free and be done with it, right? That's not gratitude. Ingratitude is a special sin, and this is quite logically because gratitude is a special virtue, right? Gratitude is a special virtue because it's dealing with something specific, right? You're dealing very specifically with giving a particular person a type of thing, therefore you're responding in a very specific way. It's not uh, to everyone in the same way. Therefore, ingratitude is also specific, right? If somebody does something very kind to me, uh, I should try to uh, some ways excel in my gift in return to them. Um, doesn't mean to anyone, it means to that specific person, and it's not to everyone on the planet, but to particular people. Right? Now, there are three parts of ingratitude. When In this section as well, Article 2, St. Thomas goes into the parts of gratitude, which is kind of strange that he put it in there because he didn't put it in the section on gratitude, but he put it in the section of ingratitude. But the sections of ingratitude are uh, when man fails to repay a favor, when he declines to notice or to indicate that he has received a favor, and when man fails to recognize the reception of a favor. So if you don't, you know, just being aware that somebody has done a favor for you and being thankful is enough, right? Can come out of a spontaneity, as St. Thomas said in question 106. That's the most authentic way, is when it's spontaneously a person is grateful, not out of a sense of debt, but out of a sense of reciprocal response to a particular type of love. Now, is ingratitude always a mortal sin? Well, no, no, it's not always a mortal sin. So the most common way people show ingratitude is by omission, right? It is a sense of neglect or forgetfulness, which, as we already covered, is a sign of ingratitude in and of itself. But it might not have an intentionality of being ungrateful, right? It's not necessarily that they intend to be ungrateful. It's just maybe they didn't give it much consideration. So maybe somebody went out of their way and they had all this thought behind this gift, that they had, and they've been holding on to it for a while, and they're so excited to give it to you, and you get it, and you're like, "Oh, that's nice." Well, it's not very grateful, but maybe it wasn't also exactly your cup of tea. So maybe you didn't fully appreciate the thoughtfulness put into the gift. Sometimes that happens. You're not always aware of the thoughtfulness put into it. I know a number of people over the years have bought me crosses or things from the Dollar Tree for cost $1. Um, I'm aware that they sell them at the Dollar Tree, and I have $1, and I did not buy them because they often can be a little bit tacky, and I have a lot of religious goods in my environment, and they're ones that I value, and I'm not just looking for more. It's not about the quantity of crosses in my room. I have a certain amount, and they're strategically there, and I appreciate what I have, and I'm not just looking for more. And but you have to also be aware that somebody on a very limited budget who went to the Dollar Tree and saw that, and they thought of me and they bought it. Uh, my response should be gratitude, even if it wasn't something I necessarily wanted. Now, if I didn't show enough excitement or enough gratitude for the gift, am I in mortal sin? Right? That's the question. Am I always in mortal sin? The answer is not all, not always. Depends on to the degree you appreciate it, the degree in which you have showed gratitude. Uh, you know, there are many factors in the gray area in terms of omission. Now, the other way in which one can be ungrateful is if they show it in the contrary. Now, St. Thomas doesn't give a word to this, he just says it in the contrary. But I think what he's talking about is the contempt one has for your benefactor. Um, if somebody were to buy me this cross from the Dollar Tree, and my response to them, to their face or even behind their back, is how awful, how tacky. I can't believe the person did this. This person has no taste. I can't believe they did that. Right? If that's my response, it's not just that I was negligent in showing gratitude. I'm actually showing contempt. Somebody has done something for me in love, and I respond to it with contempt, right? Or I speak badly about them behind their back about different things. Um, you know, if somebody treats you with kindness, the response shouldn't be that you treat them with contempt. This would clearly always be a mortal sin because you are not showing love to your neighbor, right? That's quite clear. There's no way to get around that. That's clearly a mortal sin. Anything that violates charity is a mortal sin. That clearly violates charity versus the first one, the omission. It's just a gray area. It's hard to know what exactly is uh, ungrateful. We get into that again, so I leave it there. Um, you know, should you withhold favor from someone who is ungrateful? Now we're Article 4, the final article. Now the Lord in the Gospel is noted for saying the highest is the highest, meaning God, is kind to the unthankful and the evil. Right. So if God can be kind to the unthankful, then we should be able to be kind to the unthankful. And there's 2 points to consider. One is if the person deserves it, if they are ungrateful. The answer is no. They don't deserve it. It's not a matter of justice that they deserve kindness if they are ungrateful. That's not a matter of justice. But if the person is ungrateful, then the question is, what should the benefactor do? Right? You can't control other people, you can only control yourself. So if they're ungrateful, what can you do? Well, do you stop giving them? Do you stop being generous? Do you stop being kind? Um, well, St. Thomas says it's it's you don't always know, and this is the last slide that I did early that on this topic. You don't always know what's going on within the heart of another person, right? Um, is the person ungrateful? You don't really know. The person might act like they're not grateful. Deep down, they might be quite grateful, right? But it might be a matter of pride. You might not be able to know. The second is, um, and the second point is that is just not to give up too quickly. And St. Thomas says, don't, not that you can't give up ever, but because you don't know what's going on within a person, just because somebody doesn't seem grateful the first time you do something for them doesn't mean that they wouldn't be grateful if it happens a second time or maybe a third time or in some other way. You give people an opportunity because you're doing kindness not uh, to receive gratitude, but because of the good that you're doing, right? Your giving is to establish your virtue, not theirs. However, if you keep being generous to somebody and they keep being ungrateful, you might just be leading them in some ways into a greater sin in some ways. But what St. Thomas says is we shouldn't really look at it as in drawing people into sin, because what we're creating is not the occasion of sin directly, but the occasion for gratitude and love. Right? by being kind to somebody, we're giving them the opportunity to respond in gratitude and love. If they take the opportunity, that's great. If they don't take the opportunity, that's really on them. But you don't have to do it. You don't have to be giving to ungrateful people indefinitely. Just you try to give people the benefit of the doubt. So, in conclusion, ingratitude is always a sin, right? Because there's a certain debt that's created, a moral debt that's created, and it should be responded to with gratitude. Uh, and ingratitude is also a special sin because gratitude is a special virtue, therefore, ingratitude is a special sin. Uh, Ingratitude is not always a mortal sin. Um, there are different degrees, and there's a lot of gray areas. It could be a venial sin, depending on the degree, the degree of the thing given, the degree of the intentionality. Um, if a person shows contempt to kindness, then that would be clearly a mortal sin. But ingratitude, in and of itself, is a grayer area. Right? It can be an internal sense of gratitude, and you don't always know what's going on in people's minds, whether they're having gratitude or not. Particularly, if you think of homeless shelters or food pantries or any types of things that work with the poor, sometimes people get upset because it doesn't seem like the poor are grateful enough. But you never quite know. Some people, it's a big hit to their pride to have to be in that position for some people. As we say, it's more blessed to give than to receive, but it's also equally true that it's more difficult to receive than it is to give. Right? Therefore, we should have some patience and some not taking these things personal. We give for the sake of kindness, but we don't give just to receive gratitude overtly, by external means. That shouldn't be your main purpose for giving. Uh, However, if a person is consistently ungrateful and maybe even showing contempt to your kindness, then it is okay to eventually withdraw your benefactorness, right? You don't longer have to be the benefactor to somebody who's showing you contempt or neglect. Okay, well, that's all we have here for ingratitude. The next topic we get to is vengeance, which should be a nice, interesting one.